WRT Racing. Yves Olivier, the Belgian driver, missed out for Wittmoor Team KTR. Victor Maslov, the Russian driver in the Arden Lukoil team, also missed the cut, as did German driver Andreas Schelt in the second of Fortec Motorsports entries. So of the 30 cars, 26 making the start, and you can see there the number 3 machine of Nikola Minassian. Mark Webber there, the Australian, who is making his first single-seater start today since 1997. And I think conditions here considerably different from Thruxton, the final round of the Autosport British Formula 3 Championship, where he made that start. He starts third, Jamie Melo in 4th place, and for the longest while it looked as though there would be an all-Brazilian top 3, with Melo ahead of Enrique Bernoldi here, and Bruno Junqueira in 3rd place. Webber and Minassian beat them at the end of the first qualifying session, and then Bruno Junqueira vaulted the whole lot of them to go from behind Bernoldi here to the front of the pile. Bernoldi starts on row 3 inside. He's 5th place on the grid, and alongside him the Frenchman Fabrice Valfish in the Team Astromega entry. Well, a lot of new names and faces, of course, this season. A lot of team changes, not in terms of the teams themselves so much, although there have been a few shuffling about and combinations of teams to try and get some of the longer-lived names back onto the grid. And in the wake of the bloodbath that was the end of last season, where only 15 teams were allowed into the championship for this year, there has been a little bit of cohesive reshuffling. But a lot of changes of faces around the paddock. Of course, last year's champion, Nick Heidfeld, racing in Formula 1. And the 2 drivers who he beats most closely to the title, Gonzalo Rodriguez, tragically killed in practice for the IndyCar race at Laguna Seca. And shortly thereafter, just after the end of the season, the man who was the championship runner-up, Jason Watt, was crippled in a motorcycle accident. And I'm sure he is at home in Denmark, if he's not actually at the circuit, watching this with interest and perhaps a degree of envy. Apparently Jason Watt, though, in very good spirits. And the latest reports say that he is getting stronger and healthier day by day. And I'm sure I'm not alone in Formula 3000 fans and the members of the paddock and the racing fraternity in wishing him a speedy and healthy recovery. Well, Riccardo Maurizio there in the second of the Red Bull Junior cars. That is one of the teams, the RSM Marco team as was, that had to scrabble for a position on this year's grid after a dreadful time. David Saelens having not quite as impressive a time in qualifying as he had hoped. He's 14th place. Don't forget his teammate Nikola Minassian starts in 2nd. He had problems finding a clean lap and was a little bit concerned that perhaps the engine might not have been all it should be during qualifying. Well, it seems in the second qualifying session really only Bruno Junqueira found the lap that he wanted. Everybody else was complaining about traffic. Indeed, everybody was out on the circuit, so that's not much of a surprise. But Junqueira was the man who really pulled it out of the hat when it counted. So away we go then. The clutch is released for the first time on a starting grid in the year 2000 Formula 3000 Championship, and everybody, it seems, fairly cleanly away. Well, it was cold, wet and miserable on Thursday at Imola, and a little bit of morning rain had people worriedly looking at the skies before qualifying. However, the qualifying conditions were ideal. Balmy spring afternoon it was yesterday, with no cloud cover at all, and it looks very much as though we are seeing ideal conditions again here today. Warm, sunny, clear, no threat of rain. Perfect conditions in which to enjoy Formula 3000 on the fabulous Imola track. Eurosport live at Imola for the opening race of the FIA Formula 3000 International Championship for the year 2000. Hello, I'm Martin Haven, and you join us as the car on the Warm-up lap, wherever you are in Europe, sit down and relax and look forward to trying to spot the stars of the future. This category, Formula One's training ground, being taken more and more seriously now by the Formula One teams. Some 8 of the 15 teams down the pit lane have direct Formula One affiliations, and there are 7 current Formula One test drivers racing here as their weekend job as well, trying to join them in Formula One lineups, or potentially in Formula One lineups. You can guarantee every one of the 26 drivers here on the grid, as well as the 4 non-qualifiers. Well, Bruno Junqueira starting from pole position, just going out to the corner of the screen. Nikola Minassian, Mark Webber, then Jamie Melo. There's Enrique Bernoldi, the yellow nosebox on his nosebox on his Red Bull Junior team car. I'm going to say Petronas a dozen times before I get out of it, but it's not. There is Mark Webber in the Junior Arrows car, the Junior Williams car of Jamie Melo, the Junior Sauber car of Enrique Bernoldi, the Astromega car of Fabrice Valfish, the Junior McLaren of Thomas Enge, the Junior Prost of Sébastien Bourdais. I think you get the picture, don't you? A lot of Junior Formula One cars here, and as the team managers have been telling us, more and more they are becoming an accepted part of the operations, in the same way that Indy Lights is for the Champ Car Series, the same way that Busch Grand National cars are in NASCAR racing in the States. So very much a useful way of keeping hold of talent and of honing their racecraft before they get into your multi-million-pound Formula One cars and wreak havoc. Cars lining up then for the start, 26 of them, 4 non-qualifiers. Hidetoshi Mitsusada, Yves Olivier, Victor Maslov and Andreas Schelt failed to make the cut. The man on the right-hand side of the picture, as you look at him, on pole position, Bruno Junqueira. Lost out to Jenson Button in the Williams Formula One winner drive competition. Can he make up for that this season? The red lights come on, the revs rise, the tension mounts. Let's go, Formula 3000 for the year 2000 is away, and straight away 3-4 abreast in the middle of the pack as one of the Kid Jensen racing cars gets a phenomenal start. Looked like Andrea Piccini getting away superbly there, and into the lead goes Nikola Minassian. Bruno Junqueira in 2nd place, Mark Webber 3rd, Enrique Bernoldi 4th, down to 5th place. From 4th on the grid goes Jamie Melo in his first start, and Kevin Mcgarrity's season gets off to a dreadful start. He's being pushed started, but the Nordic racing car will not have it, and the officials trying to wave him off the track before the pack arrives at the end of lap 1. Well, a great start there from Nikola Minassian. Bruno Junqueira was on pole position, had the inside line as they went into the Tamburello for the first time, but Nikola Minassian braved it around the outside, not at full racing speed by that stage, and he probably had the ability just to hold on there on grip alone, and he got the race lead. Now, what can he do with it? Bruno Junqueira will not be in a mood to let him go. We saw last year a McLaren car bump the race-leading Williams Junior car out of the race. At that stage, it was Max Wilson who was shoved by Nick Heidfeld as he tried to pass. And this year, the positions at the moment are reversed. Now, I'm not sure what we're supposed to be seeing here. It would be rather more interesting to see what is undoubtedly going to be confusion down at the bottom of the hill, and so it is. The second of the Red Bull Junior cars goes off, and that, I'm sure, is Riccardo Maurizio. Not quite sure who he spun round. We will find that out potentially when the director comes back to us, but at the end of lap 1, it's Nikola Minassian leading. And we could really probably do without seeing this confusion as well. Oh my goodness me, spearing off sideways through the pack. That looked like Soyela Yari down at the bottom of the hill there. One of the Kid Jensen racing cars being turned around. I'm not quite sure which one, but Riccardo Maurizio off there in the dirt. There is his teammate Enrique Bernoldi. He's in 5th place, 4th place. So Mark Webber and Enrique Bernoldi being dropped back a little bit at the moment. Let's see if we can spot who the missing drivers are. They'll be right down the bottom at the end there. Christian Colby and Darren Manning, Justin Wilson, all still going. Oh dear, Piccini and Van Hooijdonk being shown as either 23rd or 24th, both of them timing and scoring already having a bit of a problem with itself. Well, no doubting who the race leader is at the moment. Nikola Minassian thundering over the curbs there, really rattling his head around as early as lap 2 as he bumps over the inside curbing there. Everybody's using it. He seems to be taking a bit of a big bite of it. 3rd and 4th place battle. Mark Webber there in the orange and black Arrows junior car, holding off Enrique Bernoldi. Webber, his first ever Formula 3000 race. Bernoldi, like many of the other front runners, in his 3rd season in the category. And is that Enge Koto? It is Enge Koto, the McCowan driver, also running off track. So some settling down and some calming of pulses needs to be done further back down the order. Nikola Minassian setting into his task already of driving away from the Brazilian who chases him and the rest of the pack. Fastest lap on lap 2. Well, it's not a surprise that the race leader, who's opening up a little gap, is the quickest man on the racetrack. Junqueira in 2nd place, Webber 3rd, Bernoldi 4th, Melo. And then the best of the McLaren junior outfit drivers, Stéphane Sarrazin. Nearly a second now from Nikola Minassian to Bruno Junqueira in 2.5 laps. That will have been at the start-finish line, so that'll be after 2 laps. Junqueira needs to do slightly better than that if he's going to hold on to the coattails of Nikola Minassian. Little chance there to look back through the field and see your favourite drivers. Is a great move put to bed. Superb opportunist driving by Fabrizio Golin there. Didn't see quite what set that up around the corner, but Golin coming down the hill like a scalded cat, and what a great move. Jamie Melo now has made a mistake, falling back into the clutches of the 5th place man, Stéphane Sarrazin, and somebody also having a big problem there, and that I think must be a car headed for retirement. It looked as though it may well have been Riccardo Maurizio, I was thinking, but no, it's Enrique Bernoldi. Bernoldi already out of the race, and in fact the speed of approach of Fabrizio Golin may well have been because Enrique Bernoldi was going a lot slower. And could it be that the reason that Jamie Melo had dropped back so much was that he perhaps had been held up when Enrique Bernoldi had a little bit of a problem? Whatever, Bernoldi has gone from 4th place, and you saw that telltale puff of smoke coming from his exhaust. And that shows engine maladies are certainly what his problem was. So Thomas Enge in 5th place, I beg his pardon, not Stéphane Sarrazin. In the best of the McLaren junior cars, there is Sarrazin a long way down the grid, of course. And battling here, well, it's the 31 car of Soyela Yari and the 2nd of the Arrows machines. Out front, though, in 3rd place is the Arrows team leader, Mark Webber. Christian Albers, like Webber, inexperienced in 3000. Oh, my goodness me, is he going to hold it? What a great piece of rally crossing. Fantastic stuff. A big mistake to go off in the first place by Mario Haberfeld, but what a save when he realised it was going. Kept his foot in and held on to that one, and I don't think he will have done too much damage to the car. He may have lost a place or two, but that is about the size of it. So your top 6 then, Minassian leading from Junqueira and Webber. And look at that, oh, he was going off from so far back. Nick Heidfeld. Mario Haberfeld, I beg your pardon, what a monster moment for him. Minassian across the line, and the gap to Junqueira is opening up. Then to 1.1. Jamie Melo, though, dropping further away. He's got Thomas Enge and Fabrice Valfish for close company, as we see Enrique Bernoldi's car being pushed down the pit lane. Tried to struggle back to the pits to save himself the walk, didn't quite manage it. There is your top 6 positions. And then in 7th place, it's Fabrizio Golin in the Coloni car. Bas Leinders in 10th place, rounding out the top 10. Don't forget, of course, that you only get points down to 6th position. Fernando Nicola had a great start. He's in 17th place. He started in 26th. The Indonesian driver, what a start from him. Nikola Minassian leading the opening round of the Formula 3000 Championship here at the Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari at Imola. And opening up an advantage. The top 6 driving away from the rest of the field now. And you can see why they're getting a bit wild and ragged behind, using more and more curb, more and more dirt, and in some cases an awful lot of rally crossing. Several retirements already, and several drivers. Here, a carbon copy replica, nearly, not Nikola Minassian. I guarantee you that is absolutely not Nikola Minassian. A carbon copy replica there of Mario Haberfeldt's run down the hill, onto the grass under braking, and off into the dirt. How many times have we all done that on the GP2 simulator on our PCs? Well, it's slightly more for real when these guys do it. There is Golan, Bourdais, Saelens, and Bas Linders. They're the next group chasing. But Nikola Minassian out front. 4th place, Jamie Mello. Lock of the brakes as he tries to hold off Thomas Enge. And then Fabrice Valfish dropping back. Golan there in the Prost Junior car, the blue machine. Then Saelens in the 2nd of the McLaren cars. And Fernando Alonso in that group as well. And Bruno Junqueira now turning up the wick. I wonder what he's feeling from his tyres as he decided now that they are going much better than in the opening couple of laps, as he allowed them plenty of time to come in. Minassian there, hands on the wheel, twitching it into the corner. Mark Webber staying in contact. JB Mello dropping away a little bit towards Thomas Enge. And then this 5-car train. And Kevin Mcgarrity, fastest lap. That's very impressive indeed. The Nordic racing machine piling on the pressure. Well, he must be absolutely spitting, because he, of course, was the man who was left on the back of the grid when his car wouldn't get away from the line for him. Across the line they come again, and Bruno Junqueira getting closer to Nikola Minassian on the last lap. Minassian has tailed back a fraction of that to 0.8 of a second from 0.7. Mark Webber being eased away slowly as he is dropping that battle between Melo and Enge. And then this battle, Valfish, then the blue car of Golan, then the silver car. That's oh, we've had a bit of a change in the order here. There's Golan, there's Bourdais, there is Saelens, then Linders, then Alonso, then the number 1 car, which is Sarrazin. And Stéphane Sarrazin, very disappointed to be so far down the grid in the qualifying session. 18th position he started in the number 1 McLaren car. And he was very disappointed, unable to find a clean lap, he said. And not at all a happy man after qualifying, although he did at least console himself with the fact that it was, he felt, purely traffic that really put a stymie in his operation. So the opening laps of this Formula 3000 race at Imola, round 1 of the championship, full of entertainment, drama and excitement already. We'll pick up the action as we continue live after the break here on Eurosport. Back live at Imola with Eurosport, Europe's sports leader. The opening round of the FIA Formula 3000 International Championship being led, as it has been since the first corner, by Nikola Minassian, the Frenchman. Well, plenty of action all around the track in the opening stages of the race. While we were away on break, we saw the second arrows car of Christijan Albers having a monster rattle across the gravel. Riccardo Maurizio, wheels rubbed on the side of the car. He's been off once already, he's off for good this time. And replay here, let's have a look at what happened. Riccardo Maurizio loses it a lap after Christijan Albers lost it exactly the same place. Albers, though, came backwards into that shot from out of screen left and continued backwards across the gravel, exiting screen right. We did see him rattle back onto the track, so he is somewhere around spreading gravel. May have made it back to the pits by now. There is your leaderboard. Mark Webber still in third place, being dropped by the leaders, but easing away from the battle between Jamie Melo and Thomas Enge. Enge similarly pulling away from sixth place man Fabrizio Golin. There is Enge, and here is Golin with Sébastien Bourdais, David Saelens, Fernando Alonso, Stéphane Sarrazin, and the rest chasing him down. Look all the way down through the field there. See if you can pick out the position of your favourite drivers. Nikola Minassian out front. Of course, British fans will remember him from his Formula 3 exploits in the British Championship. Should have won the title, really, with the Promotechni Renault outfit. Well, that is all done and dusted. His Formula 3000 career looked to have stalled in '98 when he came in from British Formula 3, and like so many F3 drivers since and before, found the cars a real handful to deal with. Dropped by the McLaren junior team at the beginning of '99. He took a last-minute gamble with the fledgling Christijan racing team, a team of brand new cars and engineers, no experience in the series at all, and only a middling to indifferent year in Formula Opel's Euro Series before that to their name. And what a gamble that turned out to be. The best roll of the dice of his life so far, I should think, for the man who leads this race, Nikola Minassian. They were immediately threatening. They showed well at Imola last year. They led the race and looked like finishing in the podium at Monaco, and then dominated at Silverstone in a season that saw Christijan Racing become perhaps the Jordan-alikes of the Formula 3000 Championship, if you like. Fun, young, impetuous bunch of guys who know how to do their racing. Well, Minassian left them for the Supernova outfit, and as a result, part of the Benetton, or now Renault Benetton junior team, I guess. Looking down the order then, and there is the recovering number 7 machine of Fernando Alonso. As we picked him up there, he's gone, I think, out of 10th place because he seemed to be getting back up to speed. The cameras didn't show a spin, but I imagine that that's what had happened immediately before we picked him up there. And the young man who's not 19 until July this year, good grief. It's one thing when policemen get younger, it's another thing when racing drivers are nearly 20 years younger than you. That really is very hard to take. But Fernando Alonso, young man, dominated the Euro Open by Nissan last year and has got undoubtedly a bright future ahead of him. Well, 1-6 to Fabrizio Golin from Nikola Minassian. It's a big gap already, as you can see, and there is the end of the road for Saelens. I rather fancy that big puff of smoke is not the sign of anything good happening in the Frenchman's Coloni car. And, well, perhaps it wasn't just smoke. There he is, gyrating. And indeed, it wasn't just smoke, it was a John Alesi getaway after a spin. So Saelens continues then, having lost a few places. 4th place, Jamie Melo there, coming towards us, the familiar green and yellow colours now of the Petrobras sponsorship on the Williams junior team. And goodness me, I think Thomas Enge is going to have to stop sliding the tail of his car around over the curbs quite so much as he is at the moment if he's expecting his tyres to go more than 20 laps. As a result of that problem for Saelens, Justin Wilson goes up into 12th place. Christian Colby now up to 14th, ahead of Darren Manning. Last year, Formula 3 sparring partners. This year, continuing their battle in the International Formula 3000 Championship here live on Eurosport. Nikola Minassian dominating the early going in this first round of the FIA Formula 3000 Championship. Bruno Junqueira and Mark Webber hanging in there, trying to keep him honest. Junqueira closed the gap back down to 0.7 of a second after 3 or 4 laps. But since then, Minassian has been able to dig a little deeper and pull out more of an advantage. Junqueira in 2nd place, the green and yellow machine. Black and orange car is that of Mark Webber, the 3rd place man. Webber started third on the grid, Junqueira on pole, Minassian in second place. So just that one change amongst these top three drivers. And Minassian basically jumped Junqueira at the start. Didn't jump the start, he got the better of Bruno Junqueira in the first couple of turns, went around the outside into the long first left-hander and took the line away from Bruno Junqueira. Junqueira, if he'd thought of contesting it severely, I'm sure would have decided that avoiding contact was more important than holding on to the lead out of the first turn. Whatever, he's second. Here is his teammate, the young Brazilian, runner-up in the South American Formula 3 Championship. It's a multinational series, the Sudan F3 Championship, and well known for producing young Brazilian racers who come over to Europe and show the Europeans what it's all about. And it looks like Jamie Melo may well be another one cast from that same mould. Minassian, Junqueira, Webber, your top three. Melo in fourth place. Fifth place then, Thomas Enge, the better placed in qualifying and now in the race of the McLaren Junior cars. There they go, fourth and fifth. Sixth place, having a little bit of a lonely afternoon at the moment, is Fabrice Valfish rather. Onboard cameras being shown around the circuit. Oh, for some onboard camera action in a Formula 3000 race live on Eurosport. Wouldn't that be lovely? Sadly, I'm afraid that is not likely to happen in the current scheme of things, with the Formula 1 digital operation being pushed heavily courtesy of multiple onboard usages. Well, Minassian really is stretching away now from Bruno Junqueira and Mark Webber. And those three, is this really the top three that we're looking at for the rest of the season? Certainly their experience and their abilities should suggest that these three are going to be regular front runners, and all of them potential pole position and race winners. And the way that they're easing away from everybody else at the moment should perhaps come as a little surprise. Fabrizio Golin now ahead of Fabrice Valfish, so a change in the points. And Fabrice Valfish dropping right down the order. Where's he gone to? Didn't see him disappear, but he has definitely disappeared. So Fabrice Valfish gone from sixth place, and Fabrizio Golin now in that position. That leaves Sébastien Bourdais in seventh, ahead of David Saelens, Bas Leinders. And was that Andrea Piccini? Looks as though it might well have been. And going off there, Ananda Nikola. Well, that's his second excursion. We saw him going off down at the bottom of the hill earlier on. And Ananda Nikola racing for the WRT team. Well, he started in 26th and last spot on the grid, and before his two spins he was up in 17th place, or before his two grassy, gravelly off-track excursions. So if there's an onboard you would like to see from the beginning of the race, I think Ananda Nikola's may well be the one to start from stone last and to carve his way through half the field in the opening few laps. Shows that the Indonesian certainly isn't worried about using the accelerator. Clearly, though, he is finding it a little bit more difficult to settle down into full race distance than our current front runners. Leader Nikola Minassian holding sway here at Imola. Eurosport live at Imola for the opening race in the Formula 3000 International Championship for the year 2000. Your top three still Nikola Minassian, Bruno Junqueira and Mark Webber, all available to you in the same camera shot, largely because they are still within shooting distance of each other. Plenty of racing left here at the support race for the San Marino Grand Prix. Plenty of opportunity yet for Webber or Junqueira to strike if Minassian drops his guard for a second. Mark Webber staying within a second of Bruno Junqueira and really hounding the Brazilian. just far away enough to ensure clean airflow and an easy ride for his wings and tyres, but close enough to be a constant irritation in the mirrors. Minassian, though, with a more comfortable advantage. This race won last year by the McLaren Junior team. It wasn't car number 2, it was car number 1 last year. Nick Heidfeld took victory after edging past Max Wilson and bumping Wilson off into the dirt. And off has gone the 29 machine. That's Mario Haberfeld, once more the Fortec driver, finding himself on the dirt. So Mario Haberfeld now drops out from ahead of Justin Wilson and back down the order a fraction. Let's have a look and see what happened there. Just out braking himself a little as he tried to hold off Justin Wilson. Wilson goes through, Haberfeld loses a couple of places. Wilson with Fernando Alonso behind him. And so Haberfeld may just about rejoin ahead of Christian Colby. Christian Colby raced in British Formula 3 last year for the Fortec team. Haberfeld racing in Formula 3000 this year for Fortec, as Christian Colby joins the French Dams lineup for his Formula 3000 debut. Well, Mark Webber on the tail of this lead group, and I'm sure biding his time. Two very experienced drivers ahead of him, both of them in their 3rd year of Formula 3000. And while he would prefer to start his season with a win, I'm sure starting his season with a 3rd place podium position would not be a bad debut at all for Mark Webber. Behind them, 4th and 5th, Jamie Melo and the increasingly wayward and sideways Tomas Enge. Sprang from nowhere, really, this Czech driver in the middle of '98. When he arrived in the middle of the season, in the middle of the grid with the Autosport racing team. And he looked reasonably impressive throughout 98's remaining races. 99, there was a disaster. The WRT FINA team really were completely lost and had no idea how to get their cars into any kind of competitive shape. Another fastest lap for Kevin Mcgarrity, still not showing on timing and scoring as being within the top 20, but he must be by now, because there have been enough retirements. And there's another one. Ananda Mikkola, the Indonesian driver, goes off, and I think this time will stay off. Several years in the Italian Formula 3 Championship were the basis for his arrival here. That's where he first made his European mark, and getting it wrong under braking, and that is really just inexperience of the circuit and of the cars. Got it wrong under braking, missed his braking marker, and off he goes. Into the new security system, incidentally, a new tyre wall retaining system being used around the track, and it's being debuted here at Imola around a few of the corners. The idea is to stop errant tyre walls collapsing and doing damage to drivers and cars. And the search continues, privately funded search continues, for really something even halfway as sensible as the air fences that they use to surround barriers or to protect riders from barriers in the motorcycle Grand Prix. This new safety system you can see around the sides of the circuit. And if you wonder why it's painted green, it's not necessarily to merge in with the grass. It's a very handy colour indeed for displaying digital image advertising hoardings on, as we have seen already appearing at Formula 1 circuits in the last few years. Well, Tomas Enge's wayward and sideways attack on the 4th place Jamie Melo seems to have helped only Melo. There is the second Arrows car facing the wrong way. Christian Albers, another, well, race of interest and excitement for him. Another of these young newcomers to the series, finding that the cars, well, they are a little bit perhaps more wayward or fractionally less precise, shall we say, than Formula 3 cars need to be. So Justin Wilson now in his 2nd year in Formula 3000 in 11th place, just outside the top 10. Christian Colby and Darren Manning still battling for 14th and 15th. Fernando Micola's car is craned efficiently away by the Imola marshals as the leaders continue on their way. The gap seesawing, Bruno Junqueira renewing his efforts now to reel in Nikola Minassian, the race leader. And Mark Webber going with him. The gap now equidistant between the three of them. Probably something around a second and a half. Maybe more like a second between each of those three cars now as they come to the line. And Minassian, well, much less than that, in fact. 0.6 and 0.7 of a second separating the cars as they came across the start-finish line to start the next lap. Tomas Enge dropping away from Jamie Melo, under no threat though from Fabrizio Golin at the moment. And Junqueira, you can see, visibly more aggressive now. He's sat back, he's relaxed, he's allowed the fuel load to lighten, he's allowed the tyres to wear evenly and comfortably over the last few laps. He's allowed Minassian to push on, and now he is trying to reap some of the benefits from that. Christijan Albers, again, once you make a mistake, finding it hard to get back into the rhythm, finding it hard to settle. Look at Junqueira, though. He is using so much more track than Nikola Minassian at the moment. Minassian using the full width of the racing line. Junqueira quite happy to kick up the dirt and the grass around the edges of the rumble strips. Really pushing hard now, making a concerted effort to run the leader down and to put himself into a position maybe down at the bottom of the hill here, not this lap but another, where he can make the move for the lead, and that is going to be a favoured passing position. Down the bottom there into the double left-hander. And that is very much a favoured passing place. Another one is on the run down as they come out of Variante Bassa, the final chicane. Oof, my goodness me, and just about gathering it up in time is Kevin Mcgarrity on a stormer of a race at the moment. Mcgarrity not in any hope at all of getting points unless 20 cars retire ahead of him. But he is absolutely flying around the course. 2 fastest laps already to Kevin Mcgarrity, the quickest man on the track. And you can see how hard he is pushing his Nordic racing machine. One thing is for certain, when he gets out of this car, Kevin Mcgarrity will have worked up a big sweat indeed. Well, Junqueira, for all his efforts, still not close enough to challenge yet. And the perennial problem of getting in close enough while not disturbing the airflow to the all-important wings on the front of your car. Now he pushes so wide at the bottom of the hill. Goodness me, really flying there through Acqua Minerale. Over the rise, and he's looking hard to find a way to get to grips with Nikola Minassian. Still not close enough to try anything. In fact, worse than that, he's dropped back, and worse still than that, Mark Webber is closing in from behind. And unless Junqueira is very careful, Webber could soon be trying something for second place, and that would really start to liven up the lead battle. Don't think in any way, shape or form that Mark Webber's been held up by Junqueira. I think both of them have been sitting behind Minassian, content to sit there until the fuel load lightens and the car becomes much more manageable and closer into the area in which they want to go toe-to-toe with other drivers for the lead of this race. And now we're getting into that sort of situation, I think. Minassian, Junqueira and Webber, and nobody else in this one. Right from the start there was no one else in it. Jamie Melo holding on in 4th place, and that really will be a very fine result indeed for him, straight from Formula 3 into Formula 3000. And a very good race debut that will be for him. A very good race debut, any top 3 finish will be for Mark Webber as well. As David Sears, the Supernova team boss, commented, if he can drive unwieldy GT1 Mercedes sports cars quickly, unwieldy compared to these cars as well, then he's got the stamina, the fitness and the ability to drive Formula 3000 quickly. And of course the endurance racing with Mercedes, all right, it was back in 98, he didn't get to race at all in 99, but that still has helped him survive long races and long stints in the car. Minassian, Junqueira and Webber getting closer still to the second place man. Could we see a challenge soon from the Australian? Well, at least the leader looks to be safe at the moment. Minassian once more stretching his lead of this opening round of the F3000 Championship at Imola. Junqueira in second place, Webber in third, holding on to the Brazilian, trying to look now for somewhere to challenge Junqueira, as Junqueira has spent the last 5 laps looking for somewhere to challenge Minassian. Minassian, though, has opened up his attack once more and is starting to pull away from the second and third place men. Top of the picture is Jamie Melo, the Brazilian in the second of the Petrobras junior cars. He's in a fine 4th place, and Tomas Enge, oh my goodness me, Tomas Enge looks to be on a completely different tyre to everybody else. It's as if he's got cross plies on still, where everybody else is in radial tyre mode. The car 4-wheel drifting through corners, broadside slides over the curbs. Enge pushing very hard indeed with a car that, either through being overdriven on full tanks or as a result of his choice of setup, does not seem to be half as happy as the 4 ahead of him. However, you could say he's, however, doing considerably better than the drivers behind. Enge really pulling out a big advantage now over the 6th place man, the final point scorer at the moment, Fabrizio Golin of Italy. So Minassian leads for France, Junqueira second for Brazil, Webber third for Australia, Brazilian Melo in 4th place, Czech Enge in 5th, Italian Golan in 6th, another Frenchman, Sébastien Bourdais, in 7th place. David Saelens and Bas Leinders, the Belgians, 8th and 9th. Fernando Alonso in 10th place. The Spanish driver, Stéphane Sarrazin, in 11th, ahead of Justin Wilson, the British driver, in 12th. More than a dozen nationalities competing in this championship this year. 8 Formula 1 affiliated teams from the 15 up and down the pit lane. And 30 drivers, all hoping to take their place on a 20-man Formula 1 grid next year, where none of the 20 incumbents want to leave. The men perhaps with the best choice, or best chance, are the 7 current F1 test drivers, of whom, of course, Junqueira and Webber can count themselves among that number. Further back in the pack, you can see the action there. Fernando Alonso in the yellow machine. There is Stéphane Sarrazin. Justin Wilson right behind him, the number 18 machine. And plenty of battling going on here. Number 1 is Sarrazin. There's Wilson, the red and white car. And the Kid Jensen Racing machine just ahead of them is Bas Leinders. Kid Jensen gone from the yellow and white colours of last year to a more greenish hue. And still the newcomers to the championship, younger team than any of the other teams in the pit lane, showing well again. Only 1 year older is the McLaren junior team, but the car that leads this race, part of the Supernova outfit, ex-sports car racer and single-seater man David Sears, starting this outfit when he retired from racing at the beginning of the 90s. And they have really become a very, very potent force, the dominant force, you would have to say, in Formula 3000 over the last half a decade. 3 champions and 2 runners-up in the last 5 seasons they've produced. Well, here is Leinders, Sarrazin behind him, then Wilson, Alonso. This is the battle for 9th place. Further back, as you can see, Harbourveld, Colby, Manning, just adrift of this group and having their own little battle behind. Belgian Bas Leinders then leading Frenchman Stéphane Sarrazin, the Briton Justin Wilson, and the Spaniard Fernando Alonso. Justin Wilson raced with Astromega last year. And Fernando Alonso right behind him now, racing for that team. Of course, tragedy for Astromega at the end of last season, losing Gonzalo Rodriguez before the final race, and off goes, oh my goodness me, the Prost Junior car of Sébastien Bourdais. So they all move up a spot. And was that David Saelens going off as well? As I bent down to rub a name off my little lap chart. Well, we will have to wait and see. It doesn't look as though it was. Sébastien Bourdais, who would he have been battling with? Either Saelens or Golin. And we don't get to see it in the replay. Oh dear. Okay, so it was from behind him. So I think it was almost certainly David Saelens who has gone out as well. The reflection, not really. Is it the second Supernova car? I think it probably is. So we may well need to scratch the two of those. Nikola Minassian, David Saelens' teammate, though, still out front. And the gap's stabilising again now, about a second and a half back to Junqueira, ditto back to Mark Webber in third place, perhaps a fraction less. Leinders, Sarrazin, Wilson, Alonso, Harbourveld, Colby, Manning. And then the guys who we've seen having trouble, all starting to come in, the Coutos, the Puccinis, the rest of the field. Which leaves Fabrizio Golin in sixth place, and the battle we were watching earlier with Bas Leinders leading it in seventh. And oh, a monster overshoot down the pit entry road for David Saelens. And if that's not gravel in the brake discs, I want to know what is. No doubt about it, he outbraked himself so monstrously there that that cannot, I think, have been brain fade. And who is that? I don't think that is Mark Webber. A closer shot would be more helpful than that. I don't think that is Mark Webber. Christijan Albers, okay, there you go. The leaders go by, and Mark Webber is still in shot. So it was Christijan Albers, the second of the European Arrows drivers, and he has had a fair number of off-course excursions, and maybe a subsequent result of that is the engine has eaten something that really it didn't ought to, like grass or gravel or mud, or who's to say, maybe all three. Teammate Mark Webber continues unperturbed though, and still running over the curbs there as they exit Aquaminerali. Still running over the curbs there as they exit Aquaminerali and climb the hill. Everybody using plenty of road and dirt as well, as they can do today. Hasn't rained really since Thursday night, so conditions are just perfect for racing here. As you can see, the grandstand still with a large crowd in them. Not the sort of crowd you'll see on this circuit for Sunday's Grand Prix, as they cheer on the Ferrari driver who has won the first two races of this year's Formula One Championship, Michael Schumacher, and teammate Rubens Barrichello. Then you will not be able to see a square centimetre, nay millimetre, of dirt, grass, advertising, hoarding, fencing, or probably tree anywhere in the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari, because the place will be rammed to the rafters with fanatical tifosi. Here's the battle for seventh, meanwhile. Leinders, Sarrazin, Wilson, Alonso. Alonso, the yellow car, just dropping back a fraction from Justin Wilson. Wilson got his head really attacking here in the cockpit. Always leans into the corners. Always a very different driving style you notice between lots of these drivers. Many of them will keep their head upright, and Sarrazin there is very much one of them. Justin Wilson, very lanky frame. He sticks much further out of the cockpit than anyone else, and actually leaning over probably helps the airflow into the engine. No bad thing at all. He continues in 9th place, the best of the British drivers. 15 laps to go in the opening round of the FIA Formula 3000 International Championship for the year 2000, and Mark Webber is still harassing the leading pair. This is the battle, though, for 7th place further down the order. Bas Leinders, Stéphane Sarrazin and Britain's Justin Wilson squabbling over 7th, 8th and 9th. And Fernando Alonso trying desperately to stay in contact there in 10th place. Behind them, Mario Haberfeld is 11th. And then the Dane, Christijan is in 12th place. Small cheer, please, in Cheshire. Darren Manning in 13th place, chasing him and giving him something to think about. Jeffrey van Hooijdonk in 14th place. We've just seen Sébastien Bourdais walking back into the pits during the break, and that means that he is very firmly out of the race. However, the reigning French Formula 3 champion may have been dealt with. Last year's French Formula 3 champion, Bas Leinders, the Belgian driver. Yes, no contradiction in terms. He raced in the French series and won it last year. He is out front there. Well, out front in the battle for 7th place at any rate, I should just hastily add. Stéphane Sarrazin there. Sarrazin qualified in 18th place and currently racing in 8th place. Justin Wilson 9th. And Fernando Alonso now closing right up with him in 10th place. As we return to the lead battle, 1st to 7th, 18 seconds. 1st to 3rd, about 3.5, I would think. Nikola Minassian is your race leader. Bruno Junqueira in 2nd place. Mark Webber in 3rd, as ever was since the first corner of this race. Then there's the gap to Jamie Malo there. He is in 4th place. And in 5th place still, Tomas Enge. In sight, but not in touch with Jamie Malo. 28 laps down, and just under 20 left to go. In the pits is the Kid Jensen racing car of Andrea Piccini. Well, he was struggling along outside the top 20. Or just inside the top 20. It's been pretty much outside it all the way through. Qualified in 12th. And I rather fancy there might have been a little bit of wheel banging or a bit of tyre rubbing at the beginning of the race, perhaps just to upset the suspension geometry of his car. Certainly one of the two Kid Jensen racing cars, they were only 4 spots apart on the grid, got a real storming early start and was going 3 wide before they even got across the start-finish line. And let me just try and think. It was on Andrea Piccini's side of the grid rather than Bas Leinders, who was on the right side of the picture. And I fancy perhaps that Piccini's car may have suffered a little bit of damage in there. Certainly with the speed of Bas Leinders at the moment, doesn't seem there's too much wrong with the team's setup. Simon Barker, the ex-Tyrrell Formula 1 engineer, who's the engineering director of the team, has always produced good cars for the Kid Jensen racing team throughout the last season. .13 to go then. And if you're wondering, incidentally, where West Competition disappeared to, this year's McLaren Junior Team title sponsor is mysap.com. It's an e-business affiliate or ameliorating company, I believe. At least that's all I can understand from their website. I've been there and I'm still not much the wiser, I'm afraid. E-business, shmee business is my comment on that. Nikola Minassian, race leader then, from Bruno Junqueira and Mark Webber. And they're close enough for Webber to be in the dirt when it's kicked up by the leader, as Andre Coto, I think, finally beaches his car for the last time this afternoon. He's chosen a variety of different excursions throughout his tenure of that of the race, and that seems to be his final resting place. Worryingly close to the racing line, though, and I would certainly expect yellow flags to be in operation in the next lap or two. The McCowan jogs away from his abandoned Junior Prost. The race leaders continue to play cat and mouse with each other. JB Melo 4th, Tomas Enge still sliding around in 5th place. And there is your 6th place man. A brief and rare look indeed at the lonely Fabrizio Golin. "30 laps in, no change in the top 5. Only 6th place has changed as Fabrice Walfish has disappeared from the race and Fabrizio Golin has inherited that spot. Many other changes further down the order though, my goodness me, yes. And that means that the journalists will have plenty of running around in the pits afterwards to find out everybody's stories. And the excuse book will be open on a number of different chapters from a number of different drivers, I think. No excuses there among the front runners, really. Bruno Junqueira made a good start. It's just that Nikola Minassian made a very good start, got alongside him into the first 2 turns, and that was all she wrote. Junqueira avoiding an accident and deciding that discretion might be the better part of valor on the first corner of the first race of perhaps the most important race championship year of his life. And here again, for the benefit of his fans and the Italian viewers, is Fabrizio Golin, yeah, just very briefly, having a thoroughly lonely race, miles away from the Bas Leinders-led battle for 7th place, similarly miles away from these two, Melo and Enge, in 4th and 5th. He just can't get in contact with them. No chance at all of it happening now before the end of the race, I don't think, unless one of them strikes a problem. And so he's having a thoroughly tedious afternoon, I'm sure. Sure, he's in for a point, sure the car's working well, sure it's a nice sunny afternoon, but this isn't driving for fun, and the whole point of racing is to be able to overtake people in front of you until there are no people in front of you, except for the man with a checkered flag. Big lock up there from Mark Webber, having his first very serious lunge at Bruno Junqueira. And there's about a 12-inch strip of tyre tread successfully removed there. You can see the bright black colour of it, as opposed to the slightly duller colour of the tyres normally run at, as he locked the inside left wheel there, having a little look deep under braking behind Junqueira. Let's have a look again as he just shows him the nose, not making a pass, but by goodness, that's the kind of thing that is guaranteed to get a driver looking in his mirrors, because he almost had a wheel inside Junqueira's rear wheel, and that, if it doesn't ring alarm bells in any single-seater driver's head, is really a signal that he should not be missing. Junqueira now pushing further to try and stay out of the clutches of Webber, and again Webber locking up down at the bottom of the hill there. Coming into the last 10 races and really now getting into the crunch period for these guys. If they're going to do anything about the race leader, they need to do it now, and it doesn't seem as though they're that intent on working together. They've both sat back and let Minassian run the race at his pace, and that was probably good tactics from them. Whether it will turn out to be the best tactics in the end or not remains to be seen. Here is our battle for 7th again, rejoining Leinders, Sarrazin, Wilson and Alonso. And there is Justin Wilson. And ahead of them you can see Fabrizio Golin. Well, he, I think, is really safely out of harm's way. You can see how difficult it's been for the front runners to really get to grips with each other when the cars are so light and so nimble, and when they are so well settled into their rhythm. And exactly the same is true here. Fernando Alonso spun himself down this order, got back onto the tail of Justin Wilson. He was going quicker than Wilson when he caught him. Now he's doing exactly the same speed. It's this buffer that the cars produce behind them of turbulent air that prevents other cars from getting close. It doesn't prevent the driver from driving close up behind you, certainly in a straight line. It's just that when he gets to the corner, his front wheels won't go round because his front wing won't work, because it's not running in a nice clean airflow. It's in dirty, bumpy, turbulent air, and you all know what that feels like in an aircraft. Imagine if you were trying to drive a car through those kind of conditions. It's very much the same thing. The front end just won't turn, and as a result you just get forced back a fraction as you run wide to somewhere where your wings do work, and that is the 0.6 or 7 of a second gap between all of those cars. Well, riding over the curbs and not quite into disaster. Saelens, another big save from the Frenchman, another self-forced error. Meanwhile, Minassian from Junqueira and Weber continues to be the situation out front. No change either in the battle for 7th. Christian Kolbe chasing Mario Haberfeld, with Darren Manning behind him. Justin Wilson still the best placed British driver in 9th position. Don't forget, he scored a point here last year. Down the hill they come again, and for all its potential as a passing position, that run down the hill has singularly been unused. Minassian has not had a threat made to him concertedly at that stage, nor has Bruno Junqueira in 2nd place. So the Ravazza, which produced a change of lead last year, as Max Wilson was bumped out of the lead as Mario Haberfeld, Nick Heidfeld rather, tried to get inside him, has not seen that happen this year. It's all happened in the first corner. Justin Wilson locking up his tyres, dropping back a fraction there from Stéphane Sarrazin, as you can see now. As a result, the legacy of that is, of course, that Fernando Alonso is a little closer, may try and make a pass here, closing up out of Tamburello and staying with him. Out of Tosa, they climb to the Piratella and down through the Acqua Minerale. And still very hard indeed to make any changes. The teams will be hanging over the lap boards every time they come past the line, and the drivers sitting here following the same set of exhaust, the same rear wing for lap after lap. We'll just see them clicking away, and surely somewhere soon the frustration will overcome a driver's natural reticence to put his car in a risky position, and it will need to. Nikola Minassian, if anything, more comfortable now in these late stages of the race than he has been at any other stage so far. And it appears that Jamie Melo in 4th place may even be closing up a little bit to Bruno Junqueira and Mark Webber. And if Jamie Melo has any stamina left for a last few laps charge, now is certainly when we will see it. Under pressure here is Christian Coleman, and big slide behind him. Impressive stuff there from the Arden driver Darren Manning. These two drivers very well known indeed to British race fans. We watch Christian and Darren racing in the British Formula 3 Championship last year. Darren Manning just on occasion in Formula 3 in the UK in the last few years. But Christian Kolbe running with the Fortec team last year, and a regular top half-dozen finisher. And the Dane stepping up from Formula 3 like Manning into 3000 this year. Darren Manning running wide again, so easy to carry too much speed there into Acqua Minerale. just begs you to come flying down the hill, pouring on the speed. But if you don't get the braking done before you get into the first section of it, you always end up on the grass on the outside, and as a result you'll slow up the hill, and that is so much more critical than the entry to the chicane. A really tricky, demanding part of this fabulous Imola circuit. Of course, since those tragic events of the 1st of May, the entire weekend where we lost Roland Ratzenberger in qualifying here and Ayrton Senna in the race, the circuit has been heavily revised, lost perhaps some of its danger and some of its challenge to the drivers, because surely the two do go hand in hand. But it's still a fabulous sweeping, rising, climbing, turning, twisting racetrack. I don't know quite how Mark Webber managed to get his mirror knocked down there on the right-hand side of the cockpit. Just as well there's been nobody in it ever since the start, because he's been looking ahead of him at the first two men in this race right from the word go. Nikola Minassian leading into the closing stages here. Down at the double left-hander, the Rivazza. Bruno Junqueira, Mark Webber, second and third place. And as close again as they've ever been. Oh, and Junqueira just really braking very deeply indeed into the Variante Bassa, and Mark Webber now right with him, and this is the best chance the Australian driver has had of actually upsetting the order in the top three. Webber is right with him as they make the run down into Tamburello. It's down into left, right, left, second gear, third and fourth gear, accelerating away now as they go into the long left-hander and then start to peel up the hill again. Through they come, again down the gearbox and accelerating once more, and there was a chance for Mark Webber, not a full chance, not much of a chance, but a little sniff there, and I'm sure that his pulse rate will have upped a bit, and he has got that steely furrowed brow determination now about him. The Australian really there being almost offered a go by Bruno Junqueira, late braking himself into the final chicane, and Mark Webber was so close to him over start-finish line. Now he's dropped back a fraction as Junqueira has really nailed it. As they come out of Acqua Minerale, the leader ahead of them, but all eyes on the battle for second place. Could Bruno Junqueira make another mistake? And could Mark Webber this time be better placed to capitalise? Well, there you are. There is the sense of not dropping too far back from the car ahead. Stay just about in the edge of the turbulent air. You work harder, your car works harder. It's a much more uncomfortable race. But races aren't, after all, about comfort. They're about passing cars and winning. And Mark Webber there at this stage, now looking for another telltale puff of smoke. There isn't one from Bruno Junqueira. He's much cleaner this time into the Variante Bassa, and as a result Webber much further behind him at the line, and that little flurry of excitement for Mark Webber in these closing stages has yielded nothing. Webber unable to work himself quite into contention where he needs to be, and just 4 laps left at the line that time. Certainly Nikola Minassian is getting further away from Junqueira and Webber, and I would like to warrant, I can't see timing screens, but I would like to bet that Minassian's times aren't dropping by much. I think that Junqueira and Webber's lap times are probably dropping a little bit, because Jamie Malo is closing on them, not by much and not enough to make a difference, but he is visibly closer to both men. And we've certainly seen that Junqueira is using still a lot of racetrack, but also a lot of brakes, and maybe he hasn't got an awful lot left to use. Perhaps he's just got a slightly soft brake pedal, going a little bit long on him and then grabbing there as he came into Variante Bassa to give him that lock-up a couple of laps ago. And you can always postulate loads of theories why cars don't seem to be doing what you might expect them to. Maybe it was just a momentary lapse of concentration. And maybe he is just pushing beyond where the car feels comfortable in going. Minassian certainly at one with his machine all the way through this race. Whatever Junqueira has thrown at him, he's been able to respond to in spades. And Nikola Minassian with the superb backup of Supernova behind him, looking set now to take a first win to start his season off. Well, there goes 7th place. Bas Leinders has spun it away and still sitting stationary. He found reverse gear and he's looking down in the cockpit. You know he's lost the gears. Now he's got one. But 7th place now, scratch Bas Leinders. That is Stéphane Sarrazin, who's in 7th. Justin Wilson now in 8th place, still the best of the Brits in the race. 2.5 laps of the circuit left to run. And the interest now in podium position terms is on this battle. We've already seen that Bas Leinders can throw away 7th place after 38 laps of the track. And maybe after another couple, we could see a mistake here from Junqueira, or conceivably from Webber as well. But look how close again Webber is now. Head down and charging. 2 laps to go. Well, whatever else happened in the 2 years he spent as a Mercedes contracted driver, he will have learned a huge amount of racecraft from men of the experience of Bernd Schneider and the rest of the team. And now he is going to try and use every ounce of ability to unsettle Bruno Junqueira somehow in 2nd place, and he is very close once more. This time Mark Webber got a very good run through the very anti-Bassa, but I think Bruno Junqueira got an even better one. Mark Webber was very close indeed, coming out onto the starting grid, but as they got to the line even, he was not close enough to be able to try something as they came down to the S's at the Tamburello. And Mark Webber's chances of 2nd place there looked a little hopeful, but now pretty slim. Just over 1.5 laps of the Imola circuit remaining in this Formula 3000 race. Mark Webber again looking to make an impression on Bruno Junqueira. No chance here. They continue to go down the hill, plunging down. And then climbing once more. And Webber hot on the heels of the Brazilian in 2nd place, one of the real title favourites, Bruno Junqueira. So too the man ahead of him, Nikola Minassian, and so too really, although he's never even raced a Formula 3000 car, should be Mark Webber. He's got plenty of speed. We saw that in the British Formula 3 Championship and in the FIA GT Series, and he's got plenty of experience. And what's more, with the confidence of the Arrows test contract in his pocket, driving for the Arrows junior team, he desperately wants to impress. On to the final lap they go then. Nikola Minassian leading this race by a comfortable margin. Now surely around 5 or 6 seconds ahead of the battle for 2nd. Bruno Junqueira is 2nd, the green, yellow and silver car. The black and orange machine in 3rd place is Mark Webber, the Brazilian versus the Australian, and the Aussie there in the middle of a Brazilian sandwich. The 2 Petrobras cars, 2nd and 4th. 4th is Jamie Malo, 5th still is Tomas Enge. And in 6th position, Fabrizio Golin, all out on his own. And indeed the only change among the top 5 drivers in the race is that Enrique Bernoldi disappeared out of 4th place very early on in proceedings. And after that, Jamie Malo and Tomas Enge have been 4th and 5th ever since. Fabrice Valfish was 6th and then retired. Fabrizio Golin still holding on to that position. We've only seen a couple of shots of him throughout the race. He's been on his own and completely lonely drive for him. But now, with less than half a lap to go and really only the slenderest of chances left for Mark Webber, he's too far away to have a go here. It's not going to happen for him. He closes right up under braking. And again, Bruno Junqueira is just far away enough, I think, to withstand any possible long-range threat into the final chicane, the Variante Bassa. Nikola Minassian comes across the start-finish line up under the pit wall to take the checkered flag. He wins the opening race of the year 2000 Formula 3000 Championship. In second place by a narrow margin is Bruno Junqueira. Third, Mark Webber. In fourth place is Jamie Melo. Fifth, Tomas Enge. Sixth, Fabrizio Golin, just from Stéphane Sarrazin. Justin Wilson in eighth place. Fernando Alonso ninth on his debut in the championship. And I think Mario Haberfeld crossing the line to take 10th place ahead of Christian Colby and Darren Manning. But there it is. 1 hour and 11 minutes for Nikola Minassian, and the first 6 seconds of that 1 hour 11 minutes and 6 seconds were undoubtedly the most important. The crucial start, all important. He got around the outside of Bruno Junqueira on the run into Tamburello, and that was all there was for him to do, except for hold on for the whole of the rest of the race, and that he did. Everything Junqueira threw at him, he had an answer for, and more in reserve to be able to drive away at the end, leaving Bruno Junqueira to worry about Mark Webber throughout the race and just hold the Australian off for second place. Superb result for Nikola Minassian, the Frenchman who won at Silverstone last year. His first race, the first race win for himself and for the Kid Jensen Racing team. Not his first race, his first race win. And Fernando Alonso having a bit of a donut at the bottom of the hill there for the jollification of the crowds and the marshals. So his second win comes at the beginning of the 2000 series, the make or break year in 3000 surely for Nikola Minassian. A dominant victory here. He took pole position at the end of the first qualifying session, and it was only a shatteringly quick lap from Bruno Junqueira in the second session. One of the very few people to improve on his early afternoon showing that denied Minassian the pole, but in the end it wasn't to matter. Minassian around the outside into the Tamburello the first time, taking the victory away there and then from Junqueira. Although we didn't know it at that stage, Junqueira closed, attacked, harried, harassed, dropped back, conserved his reserves and rejoined battle once more. But whatever came at him from behind, it was always from behind. And this is where it all happened. As I said, those first 6 seconds of the 1 hour, 11 minutes and 6 seconds of his race were the most important for Nikola Minassian, because that is where he earned the lead that he held to the rest, for the rest of the race, to the checkered flag. Phenomenal recovery there from Mario Haberfeld from a grass tracking exploit. Christian Albers going off there in a very spectacular high-speed lose in the Arrows Junior team. And a whole host of others also falling by the wayside. One of many similar moments for the number 31 machine of Soyela Yari. Nice recovery, but by that stage of the race he was getting used to facing backwards. Ananda Mikkola from the 26th and final spot on the grid, up into the teens he was racing when he went off. 29 there, Mario Haberfeld again not quite getting his braking points right. A few more hours spent on Grand Prix 2 learning the track would help. And Ananda Mikkola there, fancy really some problem with the brakes in the end that caused that. The second Arrows car there of Christian Albers with some very bizarre Formula 1 sound effects over the top of them, having more grass tracking excitement. And there, out-braking himself down the pit lane entry road was David Saelens, the Belgian driver. We're seeing all these as we wait for our trio to make their way to the podium. Race winner Nikola Minassian, second place man Bruno Junqueira, and third place man Mark Webber. So there is your final result. Mailer, Enge and Golin, the other point scorers. Stéphane Sarrazin taking 7th within sight of the flag. Justin Wilson 8th from Fernando Alonso and Mario Haberfeld. Christian Colby and Darren Manning get full race distance in their first Formula 3000 races. Kevin Mcgarrity, well, what a dreadful start for him. Left on the grid when his car decided not to bother making the start for him. And then a series of fastest laps. I think he still holds the fastest lap of the race to finish, well, 15th. Very, very disappointing time for him, but a very impressive time indeed for the series front runners. I'm sure we're going to see them become Nikola Minassian, Bruno Junqueira and Mark Webber. The top 3 here at the opening round of the FIA Formula 3000 International Championship. You've seen it all live on Eurosport. You'll see the whole season live on Eurosport. Stay with us for that. Well, we're going to try and stay now to see the podium ceremony. The race was run without yellow flag or red flag disasters, so we have the time to hold on. The Italian directors showing us plenty of close-up action from this opening round of the Formula 3000 Championship. And of the expected front runners, well, what have we seen? Fernando Alonso, impressive but erratic, as perhaps we might have expected. Sébastien Bourdais, very much touted in his home country. The French Formula 3 champion ran strongly in the battle for 6th and 7th before finally dropping out of the race. Tomas Enge, 5th place finish for the Czech driver in the 2nd McLaren car. Bruno Junqueira, well, there he is on the left-hand side of the podium. Mark Webber on 3rd spot on the podium, taller than either of the drivers alongside him. And the winner, Nikola Minassian, as they await the Marseillaise.